What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Alright, so it's been about like a month and a couple of weeks since I posted my last YouTube video. You guys are probably wondering what the hell I'm doing. Today, as I said in my last video, I'm reviewing and having a talk about Revival by Stephen King. I finished this book maybe a month ago, honestly. I just haven't had the time to post. I've had, honestly, conflicting time schedules with the other people who live with me and just not having the time to record. I figured why not just sit down and let my words come to me as I go along. Revival by Stephen King tells the story of Jamie Morton, a little Methodist boy who happens to greet a pastor new in town and develop a friendship. His career took him to a new town with his family, and they were new to the church. The pastor experiences a very traumatic event in his life. It led him to give a bad sermon, which in turn led him to lose his position as the church's reverend. We quickly see our characters basically meet, develop a friendship, and then move forward within their lives. Now, the story mainly is Jamie's story. It's Jamie telling in his perspective of how he met the Reverend, what he remembers being young, how the Reverend impacted his life and his sister's life, and going forward, the Reverend he denounces God. So the pastor basically, we see him and the boy have that relationship, and then we see them years later. Oh my God, this was the best part of the book for me. Years later, we see the pastor. He's not a pastor anymore. He's doing other things to entertain and to spread word and to be this voice for the community in the form of a circus act, if you will. That's a little bit of the reason why this book interested me. I was wondering, my cover doesn't have the circus cover, but the other cover for this book is a circus in the front of it. And I honestly was like, how does the circus have anything to do with, like this revival story? The back of the book and explained how this drug addict man, So, getting on the drug addict part, we're getting kind of flustered here. No, but basically, Jamie recalls that, but then moves forward in his story and tells of how his life has become treacherous. He has gone through losing his family, different parts of his family in certain ways, and he's still coping with that, and he is a drug addict. He bumps into the Reverend, and it begins this very interesting, twisted tale of God and religion and reviving one from the dead, easing one's comforts through some kind of magical entity or source of power, which Reverend Jacobs always references electricity and lightning. So this story really does have lots of interesting points to it. Honestly, reading this book, the ending I did not expect at all. I was not expecting the ending. Some things I liked about this book were Reverend Jacobs's character dynamic. As the story goes along, we really get to see him suffer while having good intentions for his life and the people around him, and then try to rehabilitate his being and his purpose in life, while all along seeing God in different ways in his life. He was able to come back to his religious beliefs, but it's just interesting, the comments and the time periodness of this book. There's references towards the president at the time. There's references towards in the past when this book takes place and how certain things like money are handled. There's a point in this book where one of the characters, Jamie's sibling, loses their voice and can't talk, and it really puts you in the mindset of like, okay, well, they didn't have health insurance and this thing might cost the whole season's worth of crops or something like that. The story was really, really, really dynamic. I feel like this is just another phenomenon of Stephen King's, is where it seems like his story really, it embodies what time period that the story takes place, with all the events and how people see the world around them. The beginning of the story, when they were kids, they were in a small town, and it's kind of country town. The story progresses and shows them meeting outside of that town, and moving forward as they progress as adults, they start to realize, well, Jamie starts to realize that the Reverend can do things that not many people can do and solve problems that not many people can solve. And when I started to realize that, those two and two together, that this Reverend was like helping people, it reminded me of like any kind of like Madame Gypsy, like old school, like,
call me now for your free tarot reading.
Oh my god. But seriously, things that I liked about this book were the character development of Jamie and the Reverend separately. Watching natural events occur in a teenage boy's life, because you watch Jamie grow from age 6 until an adult who has already surpassed his adolescence and all of his issues that a person would normally go through in their 20s and their 30s and stuff. But for Jamie, it kind of seemed like he kind of rushed through those issues. His relationship with his girlfriend when he was in high school, that little chunk of that chapter, I feel like it was a chapter, so that little chunk really flew by. But for Jamie, we got the understanding that, okay, he's having sex now, okay, he's becoming an adult, he's standing on his own, he's realizing what it's like to separate from someone that he really loved, a high school crush and a love. I was surprised they were smoking cigarettes at young ages in this book. That was wild for me. That really put the time frame. What time was this again? This was, okay, the 1960s. So, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I guess people were smoking cigarettes young in 1960. I don't know. Comment below if people were smoking cigarettes at age 10 in 1960. Because I just never heard of it. I was surprised. But anyway, moving forward, we see him develop his talents. We see him basically become a full-grown adult. We flash forward and he's an addict, and then he meets Reverend Charles again in his life, and something tells me that, like, the way that their storylines kind of fold over each other, that Jamie had to have had these problems naturally for this to even occur. And it just was interesting because it was the reason why the Reverend was so fond of Jamie in the first place as a child. He was smart and he was, understanding. Like, he wanted help. He understood adults and their dispositions in life. So in that way, this book, it was very, very, like, well-rounded. Let's talk about the book cover for a second. This book cover is pretty dope. With the lightning, it really has a representation of what Reverend Jacobs was so fascinated with, lightning. The other book cover, which I'm going to insert right here, this book cover, actually I was looking for this cover, I don't know why I couldn't find it, but this book cover right here basically was another reference towards the story. Later in the story, whenever Reverend Jacobs, he denounces God, there's a part where he is working a certain job that's kind of quirky and weird, but it's just it's a circus themed job that a person would do and people would be amazed by. Nowadays, I don't really see people getting amazed by this circus trick, but I can imagine in 1970 or 80, whenever that transition from the beginning of the story to the middle, when this happened, I could see that being very fun for certain people. It was kind of funny because there's a point in the book where they kind of talk about how doing this specific act, this little circus act that the Reverend was doing, his audience were only women. And it does get him into some trouble later. If you've read the book, you know. But yeah, I'm trying not to spoil it. Revival for me was a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, but I will say this. It was hard to get through because it kind of made me question God a little bit. Like, you know, not questioning God, but like questioning certain things that happen in your life that you really can't explain. And if this were to happen, then why does this happen, you know? So this book is really good. If you happen to have a chance to pick it up, you should pick it up. Yeah, but that's all I gotta say, guys. Cue outro.